Hello. Thank you for joining me on the live or on the replay. I know I said I was going to go live at 8 o'clock and then I felt such a huge shift in the energies and I was feeling to come on earlier. So it is 6 p.m. and yeah, so I am going to be sharing some light language in a bit, but I wanted to talk about some of the collective energies. I know a lot is moving right now. Every single person that I speak to, all of my clients all this week have had really, really big pieces moving and shifting. And yeah, so if you've been following me, my work, the stuff I share for a while, then you've probably heard me talk about winter as this seasonal portal. Of course, all of the seasons offer us this invitation to walk through different expressions of ourselves. And winter has this really interesting energy surrounding it and a lot of sort of ritual magic, whether that's high magic, low magic, all different forms of magic. When those rituals are performed in winter, they have this certain sticking power. They have this certain staying power. And obviously those who seek power and control, the powers that want to be, we might call them, they have that awareness. They're aware of that. They've been passing this knowledge down for, potentially thousands of years. And so they know how to use the seasons appropriately to manifest their desires and anchor in the certain timelines that they want for humanity to experience. Hey, Rebecca. So I think what we're seeing on the main stage right now, we might call it, hi Christina. Yeah, what we're seeing on the main stage right now with all of these sightings, all of these UFO sightings, which we have been being primed for a long time. Like, this is not new. If you've heard of Project Bluebeam, if you've been on that sort of alternative circuit for a while, you have most likely heard of Project Bluebeam. Obviously, they'll tell you that it's a load of rubbish. If you use your discernment and read between the lines and see what's actually being fed to the collective at large, then it's quite easy to see that it's not all complete bullshit. And the idea of it, I won't go into too much detail here. I'm always conscious of how much can you actually say on Instagram? I don't know. But with Project Bluebeam, it's this idea that the powers that want to be are either gonna share this stage, this operation of either the second coming of Christ or sort of staged alien invasion style thing. So we can see how they may be leading up to something like that right now. And what I've noticed over the years is that they tend to roll it out and they gauge public reaction. They do what we might call shock testing, and they gauge public reaction and then they call it back. They wait and see if people are actually going to be receptive to it, because they don't want to stage a huge operation like that and have people be like, well, that's not real. So I think what they're doing right now is priming, and that's why we see all these little videos. People have sent me these videos over the years of UFOs in the sky, and they're very clearly CGI, but if people aren't being wholly discerning around them, then often they will think that they're real. And and also what I'm going to touch on as well is my own galactic experiences, because I'm not sitting here saying that stuff doesn't exist or that it doesn't happen or that there aren't interdimensional beings. Yes, there are, but what we're really seeing is this controlled disclosure, because humanity is opening up to its multidimensional awareness, because all of this stuff, all of this talk that we hear about of the 5D and New Earth and all of these things, these are all interconnected to the evolution that humanity is going through, which is connected with us remembering ourselves as part of the cosmos, as part of a larger cosmic experience. And so it's really important for us to be able to discern, what our true, real experiences with multidimensional beings, and what are things which are happening under pretense and under a means of deception, or as a way to control a narrative. And one of the key things, as I think as well, is that whenever it's something that is very externalized, right? Like Elon Musk talking about going to Mars, getting on ships and going to Mars, that's when we know that is part of an agenda, because it's very, very materialistic. Any of us right now could remote view Mars. We could astral travel to Mars. We can have experiences and visit different timelines of Mars and understand the history there and how that interacts with Earth. We all have the capacity and the capability to do those things. And what we have to be wary of is people who want to create this disclosure experience as something which is wholly materialistic and is about beings descending in physical form to the Earth to distribute information, to be these higher beings. That's what it raises red flags for me, and is always hearkening to a certain narrative or a certain agenda which is about control. And we can see this playing out in so many different areas, where they drip feed this information in, all of this predictive programming, all of these films about alien invasions and all of this kind of stuff to really control that narrative, and to make us forget that we are part of something which is so divine and is very much stemming from an internal remembrance, as opposed to something which is just an externalized one, right? So kind of what we're seeing right now with all of these UFOs and all of this kind of stuff, to me, speaks to this chaos ritual energy that they're using whilst we're in this peak of what is a very, very sacred time. There have been incredibly sacred rituals done during on the Earth at this time that have been to seed various impulses, and there's such sacred associations with this time. And yet there is also these very sort of negative associations too, which is to distract us, which is to pull us into chaos. And I always think it's so interesting that Christmas is, the way that most people celebrate it is so inverted from what it should actually be. It should be a time of going inward and connection, and instead we're all rushing around these shops with these bright lights trying to buy shit, and it's just it's so inverted from what the genuine meaning and connection of that is. And so when I was kind of tapping in psychically to these sightings, immediately it just screamed government immediately. And even some things I saw, I avoid the news like the plague. I did a little Google today, because I was like, right, I just want to see if there's anything that's been released today. And the first thing I saw was BBC, things the government don't want you to know about the UFOs. And that's, again, speaking to that control of that narrative. Who are the BBC? They're controlled by the government. They're not a separate faction as much as they might want to claim that they are, but they're trying to get us into this place of thinking, the government knows stuff, and they, let's ask for them to show us it, essentially. And then that drives more, then they're able to drip feed more information. It's okay, well, we'll come out and we'll tell you this information, seems as you're so desperate to know. And it's this whole sort of ritual where we end up consenting to this operation, to this mass disclosure. And we avoid the internal movements within us, which are about the expansion of our own consciousness, rather than being able to get on a ship and go visit another planet. We're so much more interconnected with that. We can connect with other places without having to board a physical craft. So I think that was mostly what I wanted to share about that. And also something that you might find interesting is when I was talking about shock testing and how they sort of put information out there and then they sort of roll it back if people aren't grabbing onto it, if people aren't buying it. And I think a good example of that as well is, I think it was in Mexico maybe a couple of years ago, maybe like 2022 or 23, I can't remember, but people had supposedly found these aliens and nobody took it seriously. So then they just rolled it back and they shut it down, they keep it quiet, and people forget. We have a whole other set of programming and rituals that they put out for us, and we've forgotten about when they said they'd found aliens, and then they roll it out again, and then they shock test and see what is gonna happen, and or how they're gonna control various situations. But a really great I can't remember if it's like a book. I think they say it's like a manual or something, but regardless, it's got really good information in it. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, and that talks all about shock testing and just how heavily surveilled we are. So I think it's good to have that information. It's good to be aware of it and to not come at it from a place of fear. I think that's so important with all of this stuff. You know, you could literally be quaking in your boots, like, when is the government going to do this? That doesn't help us, that doesn't support us. What is really important is for us to be able to hold our field steady, and that is how we're able to do that is testament to the amount of inner work that we do, the connection that we have with ourselves, knowing thyself, and knowing what is really important, which is for us to be able to delve really deep within ourselves, uncover our shit, release all the crap that we are holding often from various different lifetimes, and to be able to step into what it is we're really here to do on planet Earth at this time. And that looks slightly different for everyone, but what they want is for us to be distracted. They want us to be paralyzed by fear, and also to be like fearful of what is to come, and not trusting that there is something greater that is happening with this. And it's really easy to get sucked into that space, that sort of black-pilled doomsday kind of way of thinking about the world. But, you know, from my readings of things, and, you know, things I talk about with other people that are tuned into this stuff, is like, this is the purge, this is the shedding, you know, that the earth has to go through. We have to be able to release this stuff so that we can come out of the other side and experience what this planet has written in her cosmic DNA for us all to experience as beings on this earth, and beings who are part of a larger cosmic experience. And yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about my own galactic experiences, just to share some of my personal lensing around this as well. And I've kind of had various experiences throughout my life where I knew other beings were communicating with me, but I didn't have an association with them as being extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or alien until I was about 20, and I had a full-on abduction experience. I was out of body, and I was having a whale of a time, quite frankly. I was having a really great journey, and I came across some technology that, you know, still to this day I've never seen anything that looked quite like it. It sort of looked like a motherboard, and I felt my soul kind of bump up against it. And you'll know if you people experience the astral differently, but, you know, I've had different out of body experiences where you feel like you have a body, but you don't have a body, if that makes sense. Like, you're still aware of something. And so I felt, I guess, my spirit or my soul kind of bump up against this, almost like this wall of technology. And I was like, okay, this is different. This energy feels different. And I was immediately fearful. And I was then... I then felt something kind of go down through the top of my head and go down into my womb and essentially extract something from my womb. And I then realized I was strapped to this table, this upright table. I was evidently aboard a craft, and there was all these little aliens around me the typical classic grey aliens, and they were, it almost looked like they had little clipboards. Like it looked like they were doing experiments, tests on me. And I was, I've probably still never felt a fear quite like that. But something just kicked in within me, and I was like, back to my body, back to my body, back to my body. And I just said it over and over again. And I felt myself get sort of sucked out of that dimensional plane and back through all of the dimensions I passed through and back into my body. And it was a very terrifying experience, especially I was 20 years old. I was not equipped to deal with that, and didn't have anyone around me that understood what I had experienced. I was obviously, sometimes I was more cautious than others about telling certain people, but that was my journey with my discernment of like who can you entrust with certain information, and what to share with people at what time. But I would try and explain to people what I had experienced, and obviously people were just like, you are totally bonkers. Like that's it was so out with the realms of what most people I knew were experiencing at that time. And what I've come to realize is that it was what we might call like a pre-contracted experience. I was there to get those codes, to get that information, and it was really the start of my awakening into my sort of galactic experiences. And I, around that same time, and it's hard for me to remember if it was before or after, but I was beginning to have experiences where I would go out for like walks at night with my friends, just doing that usual, thing you kind of do in your late teens. And I started seeing craft, spaceships, all different kinds of spaceships. And it would only happen with two of my friends. And anytime we tried to bring anybody else with us, it wouldn't happen. Nothing would appear in the sky. Nothing would go on. It was literally only when it was with these other two friends. And I think that it was because there was something written in our soul contracts. There was something written in our frequency that we were to connect with this. And I feel like it was, rather than it being, maybe some of it was government. I think that's definitely possible. But I think some of it was versions of our higher selves communicating with us, going, hello, wake up, like there's something you're here to do around this. And throughout my life, pretty much from that point, whenever I ignore that I am experiencing life interdimensionally, I start to have what I might call like negative experiences. So I will have either like entities trying to speak through me, through other people and things like that. So it's because it is something that is just part of what I have written in. It's part of the healing work that I do. It's part of my blueprint, and my mission is to speak about this stuff and to share it and to connect with others who are also doing that and that kind of stuff. Because of that, if I don't, strange things start happening to me. So I start getting different pains in my body. I start having like mysterious symptoms that won't go away. I start having really unpleasant experiences, because it's like, it's that thing of like, you can't run from your destiny. You can't avoid what it is that you're here to do. Like, things will start happening to you to get you back on mission and to get you back in that core purpose of what it is that you're here to do. And over the past while, because I am very interested in, I love like, that sort of like the ancient Greek mysticism. I love the Egyptian stuff. I love elements of witchcraft and high magic and all of that kind of stuff. I love it. Like that totally lights me up as well. And so sometimes I've had this thing where I'm like, I don't want to talk about the alien stuff. I don't want to talk about the interdimensional beings. I don't want to talk about the fact that I know part of my soul work is to be a bridge for interstellar collectives. I don't want to talk about that because part of me feels like there's this element of it maybe not coming across as embodied or not coming across as something that is relatable to people, even though there are many people who are having similar experiences, But I think, probably harkening back to other experiences I've had where I've tried to talk about this stuff and it's been maybe rejected. You know, I'm sure there's a million different reasons why, right? But it's almost like I was like, I love all the kind of starseed stuff, but I also love like the high magic practices, and it was this sort of realization that I had when I was in Ireland that actually it's okay to bridge those together. You don't have to separate these parts of you. You're maybe part of what you're here to do is to bridge these together. And I'm sure there's other people who are in the same boat with that, you know, that are here, that love all that earth-based magic and that also feel very, very connected to the stars. And I think that's something that we don't have to separate within ourselves. Humans have always been connected to the stars. That's why all of our histories are so deeply intertwined with stories and mythologies around the constellations, around all of those magical stories that exist right the way across the world. Every single culture has always had stories about the stars. And so I think that for me it was about bridging that all together and being like, you can do both. Like, you don't have to separate any of this stuff and try and fit yourself into any kind of a box. And so you know, I think that the experiences people have of seeing craft, some of it is governmental clearly, some of it is related to our own experiences that we have contracted in on a soul level to experience, maybe to wake us up to certain things. And you know, some of it is just like really dodgy, I was gonna say CIA CGI maybe that was a little Freudian slip that was quite accurate, but CGI videos that, you know, perhaps do come out as this form of like predictive programming and all of that kind of stuff. So I think it's various different things that people are experiencing, but for the most part, I think if you see it on the news, I think if you see it, people talking about it in that kind of a way, it probably isn't accurate, and it probably is part of a larger agenda. It's probably the emergence, even more so, of that Project Bluebeam stream of information. And so it's just about being really conscious and aware of that, and not necessarily, hey Dustin, not necessarily feeding into that in a, you know, and sort of promoting that, because I think we can see it a lot in various different, even the sort of, you know, starseed kind of groups and things like that. People get very excited about these sort of things, and it's like, guys, let's really track into this. Let's really see where we're going with this. You know, if we think about where the world is at right now, it's probably unlikely that we are going to have open contact in the next few years for majority of people. You know, there's so many people in this world that still hold deep religious bias, racial bias, all of that kind of stuff. Most people can't get along with their neighbors, okay? Let alone interdimensional beings coming down and communicating with us in such an open way. It's probably not going to happen quite like that, you know. And like I say, I totally believe we are cosmic beings. We have that capacity to communicate interdimensionally and meet with different aspects of our multidimensional selves, and I communicate with different collectives all the time. That's such a deep part of my soul work. And also, I don't see any of them coming down on ships just yet, okay? So I think it's just good to be mindful of all of the different agendas that are playing out concurrently, because there's so many, and really looking at where we might be holding certain biases ourselves around certain things, or maybe being a little bit too gullible with what the government might be suggesting and things like that. So yeah, that was basically what I wanted to share around that. Yeah. And you know, it's that thing of, you know, there are beings, there are also, you know, there's interdimensional beings, there's also humans that try and stop that free flow of information, and, you know, are there to kind of circumvent the natural order of things, that are here to try and stop our awakenings rather than to allow them to blossom naturally. They're trying to direct them in a certain way and have us experience timelines in a certain way so that we're locked into a prescriptive experience, and we're not able to expand our awareness beyond that. So I am going to share a little bit of light language, and it's interesting, the energy that I was feeling into beforehand, it felt like activation. So very much an activating kind of energy coming through. And I'm just going to check the comments as well. Hi, Rebecca. Back in 2022 and 2023, I've seen massive shooting stars in the sky, but they were defo starships or something like that. They were massive. Yeah, interesting. And I think it's good to do some tracking around that and go, okay, is it the government? Is it, another aspect of me that is actually, sending an indirect or, a very direct kind of message? Because it can be all of those things. There's so much potential, and that's where we have to get really good at our psychic tracking and working out, what is real and what is, information we're picking up off like hijacked fields as well, because just because we're psychically open doesn't mean we're receiving accurate information. Doesn't mean we're actually receiving, the core truth of something. It could be that we're receiving hijacked information. So it's really good to get sharp on our discernment, on our yeses, our nos, and be able to really work out what is actually true and what is distortion. So I am going to share some of this light language. If you guys have any questions about anything I've shared so far, then feel free. Or if you have any like galactic experiences, then I'm always up for chats around that kind of stuff. So I will begin. So just getting comfortable wherever you are and just tuning into your body. Yeah, these solstice energies have been big today. Really, really big. A lot of crown stuff happening. Last night I was feeling a lot of womb codes, like Mary Magdalene, rose codes coming into the ley lines. And just sending a cord down from your roots, just sending it down through all the different layers of the earth and just connecting in with the crystalline heart at the center of the earth. And just beginning to call that energy back up through your roots, through your central column, and just resting into your heart space. And then just sending another cord straight up from your heart, going up through your crown, and just connecting in with your source point for this lifetime. You don't need to know where exactly that is. Your soul knows how to find it. And just calling that energy back down through your crown, and just resting into your heart space. Yeah, and I'm just seeing this really beautiful golden diamond portal light coming through. Heart expansion. Just coming into that space of gratitude, so you can really receive these codes. Just gratitude for who you are, for how far you've come in this life. Maybe gratitude for your family or your friends. I'm just seeing this lotus kind of shape opening up around the root. Just bringing those energies right the way up to the crown. And also bringing through a little clearing an activation for the throat. Feeling the removal of a lot of father line imprints from the throat. Dissolving now. And just calling in your own frequency. Mushiku isuku ishukuranta samayasa, ishakrut eshukurat o sukrut eshukrut ayasanta, lifa ayasukrut o shoyasa, hutakanta, everything you programmed in for this life of how you want to communicate, how you want to speak. Takasha sat atakaratakarantai sakrataya sukrata shukurasa, vishakantai sukratak ayasikrata shukrata sukrat asukrat ashkurat nasaisa, vishkanasa ushukurataya sukrat ashkurasa shasi ikri kri asakare tukrataya shamasa. Tatsansa masaya sakrataya shukrasa, and just expansion around the crown space too. We fantai kara tekadei tekotakai sha, vishakantai sukrat osho ise si akrataya sukrataya nomosa, vishakantai so isha. Takasai so ishkratataya sa sukrutataya soya, lotaya not sukrutantotaya sukumataya shkratakataya tukshu isake, vishakasa. I'm just clearing out any collective noise. Wiki si kritikarte tukuratakaya tushkrasa. Just returning to sender, that which is not ours to hold. And really allowing the light of your source point to really anchor in, to come through. And just hearing for, definitely for at least one person on the call, downloads coming in around your 2025 that is like wanting to come through. Like really wanting to come through. So maybe sit and journal around that and see. Because there's some quite big pieces that are ready to land. And just grounding all of this energy in. Tukusui shukranta samayasa shakrut sukarasha secret sukrete shamasay sa sukru futakasha sui shukui suishukasaya sui shukananda sakranta yasha isa sukrasha. And just feeling that dragon energy coming through, reminding you of your power. Hutukutaya shukratakadayam tashukrasa. Musukashkanda sukranta karate sukrata shkurunda samaya sakrut shkrese si krikri senesha sui kishkrasai vishakanta sukrut ushkrasa shankrase shkrasa nunkru shkrasa. And just calling in codes for our higher timelines. Kitite tukta takata kataya shkrata taya sukachishkushkurase Vishakantaya sukrata karataya sukumbashkare sukurata karantotoy shkurasaya shkurasa Shkurasaya sha sukrataya nasa Vikantaya sukruto shkurataya sukuratay Ftikashay sakrataya shkurasa Vishakantaya sa. And just calling in for all of that just to land with ease, with grace. I'm just inviting you to unplug from the grid of that collective madness and chaos which is happening right now. Utakasha, sukrasha, sui shukrasa, isan, isanakutta karatakante shukrasa. You can almost just imagine a little coil just coming down from the crown of your head and just thanking the grid, saying thank you, I've received enough information from this. And then just uncoiling from it, almost like pulling out a plug from a plug socket in a wall. Just restoring you back to your sovereignty, claiming your sovereignty across mind, body and energy field. Okay, so I'm just seeing if anything else wants to come through. Just remembering as well just our power to create our own realities. This was actually one of the things I did actually want to touch on, was letting go of the stories that no longer serve us, and how powerful it is to reframe, how powerful it is to just not see things in a limiting way, but to look at how things are serving us. And I was having a conversation with a friend who has not been drinking alcohol for the last couple of years, and she was saying that every time it's this time of year she finds it really difficult, and she doesn't like the sort of person that she was when she used to drink, and if she could only just have one drink she would, but she can't because it doesn't turn her into the person that she wants to be, kind of energy. And I was saying to her, well, how about thinking about all the ways that you're benefiting your body by not drinking alcohol? Think of all the ways that alcohol is actually a carcinogen and isn't necessarily beneficial for you, rather than focusing on the I want to drink but I can't, kind of, because if you keep telling yourself that story, it's going to make it really hard not to drink. Because if we tell ourselves that we want something and then we tell ourselves that we also can't have it, it makes us want it more. That is just such basic human psychology. So it's if we find all of these reasons, oh my god, I get to wake up and I'm not hungover, or I'm not relying on this thing outside of me to feel good, I'm sovereign, then that can really be beneficial to frame things in that way, rather than look at how they're creating this limitation or this lack. Is going, okay, but actually what is all the benefits of this thing? Rebecca, feeling that right now. Cool. I'm glad I shared that because it came through. I was I feel like I meant to talk about this story. So yeah, I'm glad that it resonates for you. Need to practice balance. So I want to drink. Interesting. Yeah. And I do think that some people, I'm like that. I just can't drink. I don't want to. And it's always made me ill. Even when I was really young, and sort of there's the idea that when you're young you don't get so hungover. Even when I was 14 and I used to drink, I would get brutally hungover. I've never been able to drink. It just doesn't agree with me. So yeah, I think it's about this is how I got so ill. Okay, yeah. So maybe it is that thing. I think, are you a water sign as well, Rebecca? I always find, especially water signs, we're not primed for it. No way. Yeah. But of course it is a personal, it's a personal choice how we choose to move through this life. So, and always remembering we've got that choice. So yeah, so I think that was everything that I wanted to share. I had some notes. Sometimes I find on a live, if I'm on a YouTube video, it all just comes out. If I'm on a live, sometimes I forget things for some reason. But yeah, I think that was basically it. You're too sensitive, but it's a gift. Yeah, and that's the thing, it's just honouring your gifts, because they're always going to have like a shadow to them as well. So maybe it is like, oh, I'm super psychic, but actually I can't drink alcohol. You know? But yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything about what I shared before I go off? I feel like there was one other thing that I meant to say, and just, I feel like for anyone who is sort of wondering if they are, that was great, thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Christina. Yeah, like wondering if they are, transmission was awesome, thank you, Jane. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I feel like for anyone who does maybe wonder if they are, you know, they are here to be like a bridge in that way, you know, there's always signs. There's always things that are going to really smack you in the face, and you know, being a bridge just entails being a channel for different dimensional collectives to come through. And the way it works with me is I'm always receiving these different pieces of information from different collectives, and then cross-referencing it and distributing it, you know. So it isn't an uncommon thing to be a bridge in this life. And yeah, if anyone has any questions about it, feel free to DM me as well. What type of energy are you picking up from the solstice today? Well, I think it's been quite intense, I would say. Like a lot of crown stuff. The way I've seen it is like this gigantic like portal that we're all walking through, and yeah, a lot of heart stuff moving, a lot of crown stuff as well. I think I shared in the transmission about the like Mary Magdalene kind of rose codes coming through. But yeah, that's kind of been how I've been experiencing it. I had a couple people message me about timeline, feel like they're jumping timelines as well. And even for me, like the card that I pulled before this, like for the energy I was kind of moving through, was the initiation. And I feel like that's such a big thing with solstice energies. It's like, what are you leaving behind and what are you moving through? Like, where are you going? What is it you're leaving behind? And yeah, how are you gonna take that forward with you? So yeah, that's kind of the energy that I've been feeling today. So yeah, I think that has been it. And yeah, thank you so much guys for coming. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything about anything that came through, then yeah, just send me a message. Feeling a lot of renewal energy and strength. Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, definitely there's like a lot of golden solar codes coming through. So yeah, oh, that's my light just gone out, so I'm gonna say that was my cue to leave. So thank you all so much for coming guys, and yeah, I will speak to you all soon. Take care.